I gotta make sure everything's all good before we do this. Alright. Okay, there we go. I think we're all good here. Okay, hello ladies and gentlemen, Forrest Holman here, and welcome back to another reading stream. Today, I'll be reading the first half of the book Suicide Notes by Michael Thomas Ford. Now, you guys may be wondering, what exactly this book is about. Well, to put it simply, this was actually part of the Pride Month book thing that I was doing, that I was wanting to do, but I wasn't able to do that. And this actually is involving that, and you'll see why as we get through to it. Because on the back, it doesn't really. You may think, okay, well, there's nothing on the back that talks about it, but there is. But when I looked up LGBTQ plus books for on Amazon, this book actually did pop up. But yeah, so we'll be reading days 1 through. Let me see, which would be a better day to start in this on? Let me see here. Let's say I'll stop at a day. Depending on how long it takes for me to read this, I'll stop either on page 23 or not 23. Page 23. Day 22 or 23. We'll just see how it goes. But for now, let's get started. Suicide Notes, a novel by Michael Thomas Ford. And there's another novel by this author titled Love and Other Curses. This book came out in the year 2008. It's almost 20 years ago, actually. Last year would have marked 15 years. But anyway. For Abby McAdam, who told me to write it. Lefsa Hillier, who made it better. And Sarah Sevier, who saw it through. Day 1. I read somewhere that when astronauts came back to Earth after floating around in space, they get sick to their stomachs because the air here smells like rotting meat to them. The rest of us don't notice the stink because we breathe it every day, and to us it smells normal. But really the air is filled with all kinds of pollutants and chemicals and junk that we put into it. Then we spray other crap around to try and make it smell better, like the whole planet is someone's old car, and we've hung this big pine-scented air freshener from the rear view mirror. I feel like those astronauts right now. For a while, I was floating around in space, breathing crystal pure oxygen, and talking to the man in the moon. Then suddenly everything changed and I was falling through the stars. I used to wonder what it would be like to be a meteor. Now I know. You fall and fall and fall, and then you're surrounded by clouds and your whole body tingles as it starts to burn up from the entry into the atmosphere. But you're falling so fast that it burns only for a second, and then the ocean comes rushing up at you, and you laugh and laugh until the water closes over your head and you're sinking. Then you know you're safe. You've survived the fall, and as you come back to the surface, you blow millions of bubbles into the blue-green water. Excuse me. Only then your head breaks through the waves and you suck in great breaths of stinking air and you want to die, like babies when they come out of their mothers and find out that they should have stayed inside where they were safe. That's where I am now, floating in the ocean like a piece of space junk and trying not to throw up every time I breathe. I'm not really in the ocean, though. I'm in the hospital. They say they brought me here last night, but I was totally out of it and don't remember anything. Actually, what I heard someone say was that I was kind of dead. Pretty close to dead, anyway. I really do think I was flying around in space, though. At least for a little while. I remember thinking that I'd finally find out whether anyone lives on Mars or not. Then it was like someone grabbed me by the foot and yanked me down, back toward Earth. I remember screaming that I didn't want to go, but since you can't make noise in space, my voice was just kind of eaten up. Now that I know where I am, I'm not so sure I wouldn't be better off just being dead. And maybe I am dead. I mean, it does kind of feel like hell around here. I'm in this room with people checking in on me every 5 seconds. And by people, I mean nurses. And in particular, Nurse Grudy. Can you believe that? Her name is actually Nurse Goody. I said Grudy, it's actually Goody, I'm sorry. And she is too. Good, I mean. She's always smiling and asking me if she can get me anything. It's really annoying because all I want is to be left alone, and that's the last thing they seem to do here. So many people run in and out of this room, and I feel like a tourist attraction. I bet Nurse Goody is standing outside the door selling tickets like those guys at carnivals who try to get people to pay to see the freak show. Barkers, I think they're called. That's what Nurse Goody is, a barker. She stands outside my door and barks. But it's not like there's anything interesting in here. No television, no roommate, which actually now that I think about it is probably a good thing. Not even any magazines or books. Just me in bed looking out the window, which is the kind with wire running through the glass so you can't break it and jump out. The paint around the windows is all chipped, like maybe someone who was in here before me tried to break the window, then decided to claw their way out instead. Now that I look at it, the whole room is kind of old looking. The walls are this dirty white color, and there are some cracks in the plaster, and a weird brown spot on the ceiling that looks like a face. The devil's face, maybe. Because, like I said, I think I might be in hell. It would make sense that he would be watching me. Him and Nurse Goody are watching me. Good and evil. That's funny. Good and evil. Maybe I'm not in hell. Maybe I'm in that in-between place. What do they call it? Limbo. Where all the dead people go who don't have a go directly to heaven or hell card. Dead babies go there too, I think. People no one knows what to do with, and dead babies. My kind of people. Maybe I'm in limbo and the devil and Goody are fighting over me, or waiting for me to make up my mind where I want to go. What would I pick? Heaven or hell? That's a good question. Seriously? I think I would pick hell. The people there would probably be more interesting. Come to think of it, it really is hot as hell in here. There's a radiator under the window, the big old metal kind that shakes whenever water goes through it. I guess it's been working overtime. I swear this place must be 11 years old. It's like any minute now the whole building is going to fall apart. At least then I wouldn't be here. It's raining and the only thing I can see near the window is part of a forest. Since it's winter though, it looks less like a forest and more like a bunch of skeletons holding their hands up to the sky. The rain is running down the glass, making it look like the skeletons are underwater, drowning. Although if they're skeletons, wouldn't they already be dead? So maybe they're just swimming. Anyway, the skeleton trees are kind of freaking me out. It's looking more and more like this really is hell. Maybe I should tell Goody she's in the wrong place. I'm really tired. The radiator is rattling. It's hot in here and my head hurts. I keep looking up at the devil's face and I think he's laughing at me. I sort of wish Goody would come in and make him shut up. Maybe she'd given up on me. I know they're hoping I'll say something about why I did what I did. So, for the record, I just felt like it. Day 2. This just gets better and better. It turns out I really am in the hospital, not limbo. I'm pretty sure that it is hell, because I'm not just in the hospital, I'm in the mental ward. You know, where they keep the people who have 16 imaginary friends living in their heads and can't stop picking invisible bugs off their bodies. Wackos. Nut jobs. Total losers. I'm not crazy. I don't see what the big deal is about what happened, but apparently someone does think it's a big deal because here I am. I bet it was my mother. She always overreacts. They weren't going to tell me, about the mental ward thing, but I found out when Goody left my chart next to the bed when she went to get something at the desk. Someone should tell her that you really shouldn't leave something like that lying around if you don't want someone to look at it. Anyway, I just happened to pick up the chart because that's what I do. When someone leaves something around and I want to know what it is, and right there on the top of the first page it said, Psychiatric Ward. At first I figured it was someone else's file, but then I saw my name. Let me tell you something. Seeing your name in Psychiatric Ward on the same piece of paper isn't the best way to start your day. When Goody came back, she saw me looking at the file, and smile plastered to her face finally disappeared. You're not supposed to be looking at that, she said, like I didn't know and would apologize. This is a psych ward? I said, trying to read as much as I could before she grabbed the folder, which she did about 2 seconds later. It's time for your medication, she said. I told her. Not until someone tells me why I'm here. I think you know why you're here, she said, giving giving me that look people give you when they know you know what they mean. I'm not crazy, I said. Nobody said you were crazy, said Goody, her smile returning. Suddenly she was all happy again, like there had been a momentary blackout in her reception, and now she'd returned to the regularly scheduled program. That file does, I shot back. It says it in big letters. Take your pill, she said, ignoring me. You'll feel better. No, I told her. I don't even know what it is. Goody smiled, which was starting to get on my nerves. It's a sedative, she said. So you're drugging me? I said. Why? What the hell is going on here? Goody took the paper cup she was holding out to me and put it back on the tray by my bed. I think maybe you should talk to Dr. Katsopus. Cat what's this? I asked her. Cat Poopus? What kind of name is that? Cat's Rupus, she said again. I'll get him. She disappeared, taking my file with me, which she totally should have done the first time, because then we wouldn't have had this problem. At least not right now. After she left, I stared at the cup with the pill in it. It was a small red pill, round like a ladybug. I almost took it just to see what it would do, but I didn't want Goody to think I thought I needed it or anything, which I don't. Goody came back a minute later with some guy. He was short with really wad black hair, and that was about 3 weeks past needing to be cut, and he looked like he hadn't shaved in a couple of days either. He seemed way too young to be a doctor, and at first I thought he was some kind of student doctor or something. I didn't even rate a real one. I'm Dr. Katsrupis, he said, holding out his hand. Why am I in the nut house? I asked him, staring at his hand without shaking it. You are not in the nut house, he said, taking taking his hand back and pushing his glasses up to his nose. You're in a hospital. Right. Right, I said. The nut ward in a hospital. It's a psychiatric ward, he said. And you're in it because we are concerned that something might be bothering you. He spoke in this really calm and casual way, as if he was telling you what he'd had for dinner. For some reason, that really bugged me. Something might be bothering me, I repeated, mimicking his voice. Then I laughed. Why would something be bothering me? Cat Poop got this weird look on his face, like he didn't know what to say. I just kept staring at him. Are my parents around here somewhere? I asked. Because if they are, I'd really like to go home now. We need to run a few tests, he said. And no, your parents aren't here. I thought it was kind of weird that my parents weren't there, and I wanted to ask where they were instead of being with their kid in the hospital, but I didn't. I'm not so good at tests, I said instead, especially pop quizzes. Could I maybe have some study time first? I wouldn't want to bring the curve down for the whole class or anything. He looked at me for a second. Then he said, I'll see you later this afternoon. After he left, Goody came back with this other guy who I swear to God was a vampire. He took what seemed like 3 gallons of blood out of me, test tube after test tube of it. After the 4th one, I started to feel really sick. Finally, the human leech and Goody went away with his tray of tubes, and a woman came in. I'm Miss Pinch, she said. I swear, I'm not making that up. I don't know what it is with the names around here. I'm not sure this isn't all a dream, because in the real world, people just aren't named things like Nurse Goody and Miss Pinch and Dr. Catpoop. I need to ask you a few questions, Miss Pinch told me, pulling a chair up beside my bed. Turns out that was the understatement of the year. Unless to you a few means 8,062. Have you ever taken ecstasy? Miss Pinch asked me, smiling and cocking her head like a bird. An irritating, nosy little bird. Excuse me. No, I told her, and she made a check mark on the folder she was holding. Methamphetamine? She said. When I didn't answer right away, she added, Crystal, Ice, Tina. I know what it is, I told her. And no, I've never taken it. She made another mark, and she kept making marks after every question and answer. Cocaine? No. Check. Alcohol? No. Check. Marijuana? GHB? Snappers? No, no, no. Check, check, check. I kept answering no to everything because I really haven't even done drugs, and she kept looking at me like maybe I was lying and just to get her out of there. So finally I said that yes, okay, I'd smoked pot a few times, and that seemed to make her happy. Like, it's not possible that there's a kid on this planet who hasn't smoked pot. Moron. How about glue? She asked me. I nodded and she lit up like a Christmas tree. At least until I said, I used to eat paste in the kindergarten. Bad habit. I totally gave it up though. I swear. It didn't mix with the apple juice so well. I have to say, I was a little disappointed that she wasn't madder than she was. Maybe talking to crazy people all the time makes you kind of immune to it. She just kept asking and checking. After we went through every drug known to science, Pinch said, Now let's talk about sexual activity. Let's not, I said, giving her the same big smile she was giving me. Have you ever, she started to say. Seriously, I said, interrupting her. Let's not. It's none of your damn business. I'm sorry, but every time I think of that line, I'm thinking of Tim Holtz Say what you will about this man, but let's be honest here. The fact that he basically made a catchphrase out of mind your own damn business is kind of funny to me. So every time I say that, or think, or read it, or whatever, that's the first thing that comes to my mind. Hello, Daniel Barry. I'm sorry I missed your comment when you first arrived here. I hope you're doing well. And yes, happy Wednesday to you as well. I'm only trying to help you, she said, still smiling. Well, you're not, I informed her. You're just pissing me off. Now go away. She stared at me. Seriously, I said. Get out of here. There's nothing wrong with me. I answered your stupid questions about the drugs, and I'm not telling you anything else because there's nothing else you need to know. So either go away, or I'll sit there while I take a nap, because this is the last thing I'm saying to you. She snapped her file shut and stood up. I'll just get the doctor. That seems to be what they do around here when you say no to them, like the doctors are the National Guard or something. So once again I got a visit from good old Cat Poop. This time he shut the door so that we were alone. I pictured Goody, Two Shoes, and Pinchface standing outside, pressing their ears to the door to try and hear what the doctor was saying. You're not making this very easy, he said. Sorry, I said. I guess my kindergarten teacher was right when she said I don't play well with others. We want to help you. You know, everyone keeps saying that, I told him. But I have to tell you, I'm starting to think you don't. Because if you did, you'd let me out of here. There's nothing wrong with me. There's evidence to the contrary, said Cat Poop. I'm fine, I said. Really. Do you want me to sign something saying that? Then will you let me go home? I'm afraid that's not an option, he said. What about my parents? I asked him. Where are they? Tell them I want to go home now. Your parents agreed that you need to spend some time here, he answered. You can't keep me here against my will, I informed him. In case you don't know, this is the land of the free. People have rights. I have the right to free speech and to bear arms and to not be locked up in a nut house. I knew what I was talking about. I mean, I read the Constitution in 6th grade, and I don't remember exactly what it said, but still. Cat Poop looked at me for a moment, then said really calmly, You're in a psychiatric ward because you attempted to commit suicide. You may think you're fine, but you're not. If you don't want to talk about it right now, that's your decision. You have 43 more days to talk about it. Do you have any more questions? All I could do was sit there for a minute or two, watching him watch me. What do you mean I have 43 more days? I asked him finally. You're in a 45-day program, he told me. You've been more or less been awake for 2 days, counting today, which leaves you with 43 more to go. What kind of program? I said. To determine the cause of your distress and work on your healing process. He told me like he was reading a brochure. You'll participate in individual counseling sessions with me and in groups counseling with some of the other patients. Other patients? I said. What other patients? Other young people, Cat Poop told us. You'll meet some of them tomorrow. Why? I asked. Are we having a sing-along? If you want to, he said. But usually the patients just sit in a circle and look at each other until someone decides to talk. I don't have anything to talk about, I informed him. Then you have 43 days of staring to look forward to, he said. Is there anything else you'd like to discuss? How about the environment, I suggested. Maybe the effects of greenhouse gases on the Amazon rainforests. Or what will happen when the polar ice cap melts? Did you know that all the polar bears are drowning because they have nothing to sit on? Perhaps another time, he said. I have rounds to make. We'll hold off on the rest of your evaluation until you're in a more cooperative mood. Good luck with that one, I called after him as he left. He's wrong about the suicide thing, by the way. That is just a big misunderstanding. I'll sort it out in the next couple of days and then I'll be out of here. In the meantime, maybe I will take the ladybug pill. If I have to be in here, I might as well get in a good nap. And, really, I kind of like how these pills make me feel. Make me feel. I'll have to remember to tell Pinch. She'll get a kick out of it. Day 3. There are 5 of us. In the funhouse, I mean. Well, 5 kids. There are a bunch of adult whack jobs too, but they have their own ward. We get our very own baby nut house all to ourselves. It's just like at Thanksgiving when all the kids get sent to the little table in the corner. No turkey legs for us. Just the parts that no one else wants. Like giblets. Let me clarify. There are 4 of them and 1 of me. I met the others today in my first group therapy session. I wasn't going to go, but I figured if I show everyone how completely sane I am, they'll have to let me out. The group sessions are held in what they are called the community room, which is just a big room with couches and a TV and games and stuff. I guess it's where all the crazies hang out when they're not busy being crazy. We sat in a circle on these hard plastic chairs. They're orange. They're orange. Traffic cone orange. Like they're a warning to anyone who might walk in. Danger. Crazy people talking. Take alternate route. Besides being ugly, they're also really unpleasant to sit on. After about 5 minutes, my butt fell asleep, and I kept having to move around to try and get comfortable, which I never did. Cat Poop introduced me by saying, everyone, everyone, this is Jeff. And they all went, hi, Jeff. Excuse me. Only their voices all sounded the same. I had zombies mumbling, brains. And nobody really looked at me. I didn't say anything. It's not like I'm going to be here long enough to make friends. After that, we sat in a circle just staring at each other, just like Cat Poop said we would. Nobody said a word until finally the doc pointed at his skinny girl with long blonde hair who was chewing at her fingernails and said, Alice, why don't you tell Jeff a little bit about yourself? My name is Alice, said the girl. Duh. What should you know about me? Well, my mother's latest boyfriend kept coming into my bedroom when I was asleep and putting himself all over me, so one night I waited until he was sleeping and I went into his room with some lighter fluid and matches. He didn't die or anything, but I got a little burnt. At first I thought she was making it all up, but then she held up her arms so I could see. The skin was red and raw from her hands to her elbows. Alice laughed. Then she bent her head and covered her face with her long hair. I'm not sure if she's for real or not, My guess is that she just burnt her arms playing with matches or something stupid like that. I bet she made up the thing about torturing her mother's boyfriend. I mean, that's a lot more interesting, and I wouldn't blame her for going with it. If I did something dumb like set myself on fire, I'd lie about it too. The thing is, I don't think she did. I don't know why, but I believe her. What's even weirder is that it doesn't freak me out. I can totally see why she would set that guy on fire, which maybe makes me as crazy as she is. Then again, I didn't do it. I can just imagine doing it. Maybe that's the difference between crazy and not crazy. Alice didn't say anything else, so we moved on to the girl beside her. She was almost the exact opposite of Alice. Fat, curly red hair, a face like the moon. When she saw me looking at her, she actually smiled, like we were on a bus and not in a hospital. "My name's Juliet," she said, all happy and cheery like, uh, all happy and chirpy like a cartoon bird. "I'm Bone's girlfriend." She paused like I was supposed to know who Bone was, like he was some rapper or actor or something whose name was all over the magazines and I was going to congratulate her on having a famous boyfriend. When I didn't say anything, Juliet nodded at the guy sitting next to me. The whole time people had been talking, he'd been looking at his feet. He barely looked up now. "That's Bone," said Juliet, beaming like she was showing me her new car. Her new, her new car. "We're in a band. Gratuitous sex and violence?" She added as if she wasn't sure herself. "Bone plays guitar. I sing." Next to me, Bone sighed and crossed his arms over his chest. He was wearing a white t-shirt and he had lots of tattoos, even though I don't think he's a whole lot older than I am. My parents would never let me get a tattoo, so it's kind of impressive that he has so many. I looked at them for a second, but none of them were really interesting. Just lots of flaming skulls and naked girls on motorcycles and stuff like that. He had hair, he obviously died because it was too black to be natural, and eyes that didn't seem to focus on anything. His eyes were black too, like his hair. He looked like a comic book drawing. "Which one of you is sex and which one of you is violence?" I asked. "What?" Juliet asked, her smile slipping. "Gratuitous sex and violence," I said slowly, but as if I were talking to a really little kid. Which one of you is which?" Juliet looked at Bone, like he was going to give her the answer. He just kept staring at his feet. Juliet ran a hand over her mouth, as if she was trying to wipe something away that wasn't there. Someone else started to laugh, but stopped. Um, it's not really," she said, sounding confused. "It's just you know, a name." "She's not my girlfriend," Bone said suddenly, looking up for a second. "She just thinks she is. There is no band. I don't even know her, okay?" Julia looked at him and started to say something, but Cat Poop spoke before she could. "Why don't we move on?" he said. He reminded me of a tour guide at one of those historic places where they take you through in little groups to make sure you don't touch the 8 million-year-old candlesticks or whatever. "Why don't we move on?" isn't really a question because you don't have a choice. It's just a passive-aggressive way of saying, "Get the hell out of here. There's another bunch of tourists who want to see the candlesticks." So Cat Poop made us leave the bathroom where Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves and go to the kitchen where they were baking bread just like they did 200 years ago. Actually, he just nodded at the next person, a girl sitting beside Juliet. "Okay," she said. "My name is Sadie. I'm a Libra. I like sunny days and kittens, and I think pollution and negative people are really downers. Oh, and I tried to drown myself, and this guy saved me, and so I'm not dead." She looked right at me like she was daring me to ask a question. Her eyes were this really intense blue, like the ice at the North Pole. She had black hair, cut short and spiky, and pale skin, which made her eyes look even bluer. The best way to describe her is to say she looked like an evil pixie, or at least a troublemaking one. Bone was next, but all he did was say, "I'm Bone," and go back to his feet. I was hoping he would say more about the girl who wasn't his girlfriend, or what it was like being in a walking cartoon, but I guess he thought he told us enough already. So then it was my turn. I really didn't want to say anything, but Bone had already done that silent and mysterious thing, and I knew if I did it too, I would look like I was trying to be like him. "I'm Jeff," I said. "I'm here because they think I need to be, but I don't. There's not much else to tell." "What's with the cuts then? What's with the bandages then?" Sadie was nodding in my lap. I looked down and saw that the cuffs of my shirt had ridden up, and some gauze was sticking out of the bottom. "Nothing," I said. "Just a cut." "Okay," said Cat Poop. "Now that Jeff knows a little more about you, today I want to talk about what it means to tell the truth." That's when I zoned out. Actually, I kind of settled into this warm, foggy place where everything faded out and voices sounded like planes flying somewhere way far away. I knew people were talking, but I wasn't listening. I wasn't interested in anything anyone had to say. I mean, telling the truth? What a lame thing to talk about. The truth is that I don't belong here. Eventually, the airplane noises stopped and I realized that the group was over. Everyone was standing up. Cat Poop came over to me. "You didn't contribute much today," he said. "Sorry," I said. "I have a lot on my mind." "Like?" he asked. I shrugged. "Like whether the whole boy band craze is really over," I said. "I know people say it is, but I think they're wrong." "Why don't I show you around?" I said, Cat Poop. "This is the lounge. You're allowed in here as long as there's a staff member present. There are usually 4 people here during the day, 2 nurses and 2 orderlies, and we always have at least 2 nurses and a security person on at night." "Security," I said. "Sounds serious. Is that to keep the gratuitous sex and violence fans out?" "Meals are also served in here," he continued, ignoring me and pointing to the 2 long tables surrounded by mostly plastic chairs. "You've been allowed to eat in your room, but from now on, you'll eat with the rest of the floor. Food is brought up from the hospital cafeteria." "Just like one big happy family," I remarked as we left the lounge and walked down the hallway toward my room. "You each have your own room," Cat Poop said. "Boys on this end and girls on the other. You may not be in another person's room unsupervised. There are bathrooms on either end of the hall." "Can we be in there with each other unsupervised?" I asked. "Or is peeing at the same time frowned upon?" "You'll be given a schedule for each day," he went on. "You'll be keeping up with your schoolwork while you're here. We'll see about getting your books and assignments from your school." "You tell me the people at my school that I'm here?" I said. I was already imagining Principal Matthews giving the morning announcement. "Today's lunch will be spaghetti and meatballs, cheerleading tryouts will be held single period in the gym, and Jeff is in the nut house." "They'll be told that when you're going to be out for some time," Cat Poop said. "That's all." "Great," I said. "And here I thought I'd found the perfect way to get out of that algebra test." "As I told you earlier," Cat Poop continued, "you'll participate in group sessions as well as individual sessions with me." "Are they supervised too?" I asked him. "I mean, what if you try to, you know, touch me inappropriately or something?" Cat Poop stopped and turned to me. He handed me a sheet of paper. "Here's your schedule for today. You have some free time now. I suggest you spend it in getting to know the other people here." "Sure," I told him as I folded up my schedule without looking at it. "They seem like swell kids." "Give them a chance," he said. "You might be surprised." I'll take your word on that, I said. You know, if this whole shrimp thing doesn't work out, you should look into getting a job at Disneyland. You're good at this guide thing. You'd rock the safari ride. I'll see you later this afternoon for our session, he said without missing a beat. My office is at the end of the other hallway off the lounge. One of the nurses will bring you down there. After he was gone, I unfolded the schedule and looked at it. My therapy session was scheduled for 3:30. I looked at the clock on the wall. It was only 12:30, which meant I had only 3 hours to kill before the amazing cat poop tried to open up my head and see what was inside. 3 hours to spend doing nothing. I have arts and crafts at 1 o'clock. I looked up and saw Sadie standing by me. She waved her sheep. Maybe I can make my dad that wallet he's always wanted. I was kind of hoping for archery, I told her, but I think I'm stuck with the nature trail and capture the flag. She laughed. Welcome to Camp Meds, she said, where the campers are crazy and the counselors want you to take drugs. Yeah, well, this camper isn't sticking around for long, I told her. Crumpling up my schedule. How's that? She said. You have a plan or something? Sure, I said, throwing the ball of paper into a trash can. And it's really simple. I'm not crazy. Sadie laughed again. Right, she said. None of us are. I'm serious, I said. So am I, she told me. Do you think I'm nuts? You're here, aren't you? She nodded. And so are you. You think you're the only mistake they've made? I looked at her face. She seemed totally serious. Then I remembered what she'd said in group about trying to drown herself. She was crazy, all right, and the last thing I needed was more crazy. I've got to go to the bathroom, I said. I'll see you later. Maybe I should have to shorten it down. So here's what I'll do. Actually, here's what I'll do instead, now that I'm thinking about it. Instead of trying to go halfway, I'll probably do it in fives. So I'll be reading up until day 9, and then day 10 through 18, and then 19 through 20. I'll figure it out. Anyway, we're just going to read up until day 9. Up until day 9, like I said we're going to do. I know I said I was going to try to do it halfway, but I'm now deciding to do it on day 9. Anyway. Day 4. Here are the basic facts. My name is Jeff. I'm 15. I have a sister named Amanda who's 13. My parents are still married to each other, and all 4 of us live in a perfectly nice house in a perfectly nice neighborhood in a perfectly nice city that's exactly like a billion other cities. My parents have never beaten us. I've never been molested by a priest. I don't know what the other kids at my school any more than is normal for a kid my age. I don't listen to death metal, have an obsession with violent video games, or cut the heads off small animals for fun. That's pretty much everything I told Cat Poop in our session today, which is a lot more than I told him yesterday, when I basically sat silent in the chair across from him, and he told me I could go. Today, though, he tapped his pencil against the pad of the paper he was holding and just stared at me. Apparently that's what therapists do to get you to open up. The thing is, it works. The longer he stared at me, the more I wanted to talk, if only to make him stop tapping. I didn't want to talk about me, though, So I talked about everyone else in the group and how weird they were. This was after our second group session, in which I learned that Alice chews her hair, Juliet still loves Bone, and Bone still loves his shoes. Very deep stuff. I don't belong here, I informed Cat Poop, thinking maybe this just hadn't occurred to him. These people are seriously demented. It's not good for me to be around them. I might catch something. He didn't answer me for a minute. He just kept tapping. Until finally I told him if he didn't stop, I was going to grab the pencil and stab myself in the throat. Then he put the pencil in his pocket. Why don't you think you belong here? He asked. Why do you think I do? I said. He stared with a staring thing again, but didn't answer me. It's amazing how that guy can go forever without blinking. I tried not to blink either, but my eyes got really dry. Finally I started talking again. Are you a real doctor? I asked him. I mean, with a diploma and everything? I'm a psychiatrist, he said. So you're not really a doctor, I said. A psychiatrist is also a medical doctor, he told me. A psychologist isn't. So what you're saying is that you think you're better than a psychologist, I said. That's not very nice. I mean, I bet they worked hard too. They're two very different things, he said. Where did you go to school? I asked. A real college or one of those schools in the Caribbean? I heard somewhere that people who can't go into a real medical schools all go to the Caribbean, where apparently all you have to do is drink fruity drinks and sit on the beach for 4 years and they give you a diploma. I did my undergraduate at the University of Chicago and got my doctorate at the University of Toronto. Canada, I said. So you did have to go to a foreign country. I shook my head like this was a big disappointment. I'm sorry, Doc. I'm just not comfortable with your credentials. I think I need a second opinion. I've been working with young people for 10 years, Catpoop said. I assure you that I'm quite qualified to help you. 10 years? I said. Wait, 10 years? I said. I was kind of surprised. I didn't think he was that old. What'd you do? Start college when you were 9? Or by working with younger people, do you mean you were a camp counselor or something? I thought maybe he'd tell me how old he was, but he went back to staring. I looked around the office, ignoring him. Besides his desk, there's a couch and another chair besides the one I was sitting in. And they're not the plastic kind we have in the lounge. They're real leather ones that don't make your butt hurt. There's a bookcase with a bunch of boring-looking books in it, and a plant with the pink flowers on top of it. On one of the walls, there's a painting of a black and white dog holding a dead bird in its mouth. He also has a window, and it doesn't have wire in it. I guess they're not afraid that shrinks will jump out. I thought about trying it, but we're on the 4th floor, and I'm pretty sure I'd break my leg if I did. Then I'd be crazy and in a cast, which is kind of overdoing it a little. I'm not like them, I said when I got tired of looking at his office. Not like who? He asked, as if he'd already forgotten what we were talking about. Them, I said, waving my hands around. The rest of the group, I mean. Seriously, look at them. They're crazy. Why do you say that? I held up one finger. One tried to barbecue a guy, I said. I kept going, holding up another finger for each person I took off. One is in love with someone who doesn't seem to know who she is and where he is. And one, I concluded, pointing that final finger in the air, threw herself into a lake for no reason. And you feel that you're different from them, he said. Yeah, I told him. Don't you? Tell me about your family, he said. Like I said, my family is totally normal. Well, as normal as most families are, which means that sometimes we fight about stuff, but the rest of the time we get along. We're so boring that I almost wanted to make up a bunch of drama to tell cat poop like that. My mother locks my sister and me in the cellar when we complain about what she made for dinner, or that my father pressures me to be the best at everything. But my dad always says he was never good at math either, and that my A's in English more than make up for my C's in trigonometry. And my mom usually picks up dinner at China, Dragon, or south of the border, because when she tries to cook, the stove catches on fire. So dinner at our house is never a problem. They're great, is what I said to Cat Poop. Everything is totally great. Then why did you try to kill yourself? The guy has a one-track mind, and it's getting on my nerves. I waited a long time to make him think I was seriously considering the question. Then I sighed. Okay, I said. I guess I can tell you. Cat Poop straightened up a little in his chair. He took the pencil out of him and held it over the pad, like he had to be ready to write down every single word of a historic speech or something. I did it because... I hesitated, blinking and sniffing a little, like I might start to cry at any second. I did it because I couldn't stand to live in the same world as Paris Hilton. I waited for him to yell at me, but he just sat in his chair, scribbling on the pad. After a minute, he looked up at me. Somehow, I doubt Miss Hilton is responsible for your troubles. As annoying as she may be, she has not, as far as I know, been responsible for any deaths. So, why don't you just tell me the real reason? There is no real reason, I said. I was getting angry because he wasn't listening to me. I just did it. I'm a teenager. We get bored and do stupid stuff. Now I'm over it and I want to go home. He looked at his watch and said we were done for the day. I just wanted to get out of there, so when he told me they were taking me off of one of my drugs and that I might feel a little out of it tonight, I just nodded and walked out without looking at him. Sure enough, when Goody gave me in my afternoon paper cup of happy tablets, one of the blue ones was gone. For a couple of hours, I was okay. Then I started feeling a little tired, and now I feel like someone kicked me in the head a few thousand times. It's a really crappy feeling to realize that your entire outlook on your life can be controlled by some little pill that looks like a Pez, and that some weird combination of drugs can make your brain think it's on a holiday somewhere really sweet, when actually you're standing naked in the middle of the school cafeteria while everyone takes pictures of you, metaphorically, or whatever. Day 5. I woke up in the middle of the night feeling like crap. I've been having one of those bad dreams that seem to go on, but where nothing really happens. In mine, I was running through this big house, being chased by something. I kept going up staircases and down hallways, looking for a way out. The whole time, whatever was chasing me was close enough that I could hear it breathing, but far enough away that I couldn't see what it was. The house seemed to be nothing but hallways and stairs. No rooms. There was nowhere to hide. All I could do was keep running. Finally, I ran up a narrow staircase and came to a door. The chasing thing was right behind me, scratching at the stairs as it climbed. Its breathing got louder and louder, and all I wanted to do was get away from it before I saw its face. But the doorknob kept turning in my hand, going around and around and around. Then something clicked in the lock, and I pulled the door open. I ran inside, but there was no room there. It was just blackness. And then I fell. It was like the floor just melted, and I was falling so fast that I couldn't even scream. Everything was black and cold, and the wind was shrieking in my head. Then I woke up and I was staring at the devil's face, grinning down at me from the ceiling. I tried to go back to sleep, but my mind was racing, racing. Only I wasn't really thinking about anything specific. It was just this stream of words and half-thoughts, like there were 1,000 different channels in my brain, and someone was flipping through them one after the next. I kept thinking about nothing until I was sure that if I stayed in my room for another minute, I really would go crazy. So I got up and went over into the common room. One of the night nurses, whose name I think is Nurse Moon, okay, maybe it's not, but I don't know her real name, was sitting in the desk that's against the wall that faces the hallway. She was doing the crossword puzzle. "Do you need something?" she asked me. She sounded irritated, like I'd interrupted her attempt to figure out 32 down. I shook my head. "No, I just want to sit," I told her. She nodded at the couch. I hadn't noticed when I came in, but Sadie was already curled up on it, watching something on television. The light flickered on her face, but no sound was coming out of the TV. She's such a freak. When Sadie saw me, she patted the couch beside her. "Sit," she said. I sat down next to her, not because she told me to, but because I didn't want to go back to my room. She was watching some black and white movie where a woman and a man were standing in an old-fashioned living room. The woman seemed upset, and the man was trying not to look at her. "What do you mean you're leaving, Reginald?" Sadie said in a sad little voice. I looked at her, wondering what she was talking about. She stared straight ahead. "I told you, Daphne! I'm going to Peru to search for the lost city of Quetzalcoatl. Quetzalcoatl," she said, her voice suddenly low and angry. I turned back to the screen and realized that she was making up dialogue for the movie. As the woman threw herself at the man and grabbed his arm, Sadie said, "Take me with you!" She made sobbing sounds. I couldn't help but laugh a little. "Shh, shh," said Sadie. "This is a drama. You can't laugh." "Sorry," I said. "You be Reginald," said Sadie. "That's okay," I said. "This is your show." "Don't be a jerk," said Sadie. "Just do it." I didn't feel like arguing, so I played along. In the film, the man was trying to pry the woman off of him. "I can't take you to Peru, Daphne," I said quickly, trying to think. "There's no room on the boat." "But I'm small," Sadie said, "and I don't eat much. Look how skinny I am." "No, Daphne," I answered. "Peru is no place for a woman, even a skinny one. You'll get malaria and die." "But I speak Peruvian!" Sadie exclaimed. "I learned it at Miss Puffingham's School for Girls." Reginald conveniently looked excited. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" I said. "There's a lot about me you don't know, Reginald," said Sadie, as the woman in the movie let go of the man and put her hands on her hips. Uh-oh. I better, yeah, I'm gonna turn that TV off. Because I know the moment it goes to a different channel, music's gonna play, and I don't want to get a copyright on that. Anyway, the movie went to a commercial. Sadie looked at me and grinned. I shook my head. "You're really nuts," I said. "It's fun, isn't it?" Sadie said. "I do it all the time. Usually my stories are better than the real ones. At least I think so. I never actually listen to the real ones, but I'm pretty sure mine are better." She looked at the TV. "Couldn't sleep, huh?" I nodded. "It feels like there are 23 people living in my head," I told her. "Only 23? Sadie said. Lucky you. She looked over at Nurse Moon, then leaned toward me. They took you off the wonder drug, she whispered. The what? The wonder drug. It's what they put you on when you come in, so that you don't freak out or try to hurt yourself. Once they're pretty sure you won't, they take you off it. You must have been a good boy. I was on it for a whole week. I wish I was still on it, I said. This sucks. This is the part where they try to make you remember, said Sadie. She looked at my wrists. Is it working? Without realizing, I had pushed one sleeve of my pajamas up and was rubbing the gauze that circled my wrist. I stopped and let the sleeve fall back to where it was. It will go away, Sadie told me, turning back to the television. The stuff in your head, little by little. I didn't respond. I just sat and watched the television. Do you remember? I asked after a while. Sadie nodded. I wanted to float away, she said, the voice sounding all dreamy. I was sure I could breathe underwater if I tried hard enough, like a mermaid. But did you really want to die? I asked. She laughed. Maybe, maybe not. It didn't matter. And then he jumped in and saved me anyway. She looked at me with the blue eyes. Who saved you? I shrugged. The paramedics, I guess. Sadie shook her head. No, they just did the work. Someone else had to save you first. Who called them? My parents, I said. Then that's who saved you, said Sadie. I hadn't thought about it like that, but she was right. Only, was it really saving? Wasn't it more like butting in? I was thinking about this when Sadie said, So why did you do it? I shrugged. Even though we'd shared a little moment playing the movie game, I didn't want to talk too much. Besides, there wasn't really anything to say. It's okay, she said. You don't have to tell me. Let's just watch TV. And that's what we did, with the sound off and not talking. After a while, I realized that I was really tired. I said goodnight to Sadie and went back to my own room. I've been thinking about Sadie, though, and how she maybe tried to drown herself. And here's what I'm wondering. How come one always saves the people who try to kill themselves and then makes them tell everyone how sorry they are for ruining their evenings? I keep feeling like everyone wants me to apologize for something, but I'm not going to. I don't have anything to apologize for. They're the ones who screwed everything up, not me. I didn't ask to be saved. You know, I'm gonna be completely honest, and I'm not even joking when I say this. This moment, that last line in day 5, in the day 5 chapter, reminds me very, very, very much about the scene in the Incredibles, where during the newsreel segment of the movie that they do after Bob Parr, aka Mr. Incredible, and Helen Parr, the newlywed Helen Parr with him, aka Elastigirl, he asks her, "Hey, we're superheroes. What did happen?" And then they do a newsreel moment where they talk about things. And one of the things they do talk about in that moment is this guy who was trying to kill himself, and after Incredible saves him, they do that newsreel of how he's suing. The guy sues Incredible for what he did. Basically injuring. Well, he saved him. He also injured him pretty badly, with at least a broken neck. But anyway, and the lawyer says in this line, "Mr. Sands didn't ask to be saved. Mr. Sands didn't want to be saved, and the actions of the heroics of Mr. Incredible's actions, so called, causes him daily pain." And then, they have that argument between Incredible and this guy. That was the very first thing in my head after I read that. That was the very first thing in my head after I read that. Day 6. 3 chapters left until the end of part 1. When I was in 7th grade, I had a pen pal as part of our social studies class. I guess the idea was that if we got to know kids in other parts of the world, we'd see that we're all the same, and none of us would want to bomb each other when we grew up to be the presidents of our countries. Anyway, I got this girl who was part of a Maasai tribe in Kenya. I didn't know they got mail out there. I wrote her this letter about how I liked to skateboard and paint and listen to thieving magpies and fun while it lasted. She wrote me back saying her family lived in a mud hut, raised cows, and drank their blood mixed with milk, and that on Sundays they walked 15 miles to a village to watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer and ER on someone's TV. That's how she learned English. Special shout out to anybody who's ever watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer and or ER in their life, whether you're starting to watch it or have watched it or finished it, whatever. Either way, shout out to everybody who have seen those shows. She sent me a picture of herself with her body all covered in red mud and asked me if everyone in America had swimming pools and blonde hair. I remember thinking the stamps on her letters were the most beautiful things I'd ever seen, and I made up a lot of stuff about myself because I thought she was so interesting and I was so boring. I told her my father was a famous explorer and that we went to Broadway plays all the time because my mother was in them. We wrote to each other for almost a whole school year. I forget which one of us didn't answer back first. Probably me. I think I ran out of lies to tell her. I was thinking about that today during my session with Cat Poop, because basically he was trying to get me to tell him stuff about myself, and I was making up a bunch of lies. I turned it into kind of a game, the lying game. You've been here almost a week, he said. How are you feeling about it? Oh, I said, I really like it. He pushed his glasses up to his nose, which I realize now is something he does when he gets either nervous or excited. You do? He asked. I nodded. Absolutely. It's totally a 4-star place you got here. I'd knock it up to 5 stars, but the pool is a little cool for my liking, and the room service was kind of slow bringing me my club sandwich. Not that I'm complaining, I just thought you should know. Cat Poop set his notepad down. Jeff, he said, the only way this is going to work is if you start talking to me. I am talking, I reminded him. See my mouth moving and the words coming out? That's called talking. You're a smart young man, he said. It's too bad you can't turn some of that intelligence on yourself. I knew what he was getting at. He was using that reverse psychology thing, trying to get me to do something by saying he didn't think I could do it. It's totally Psych 101, and I couldn't believe he thought I would go for it. So I decided to have some real fun. You're right, I said, trying to sound like I meant it, which was harder than you might think. I guess I'm just scared. Cat Poop picked up the notebook again. His finger went right for his glasses, and I could tell he thought we were having a breakthrough. What are you scared of? He asked me. I sighed really deeply, like it was totally hard for me to let my feelings out. Everything, I said. I told him. I'm scared of everything. That really got him going. His pencil flew across the paper, and he was nodding like crazy. What are you most afraid of? He said. I guess being alone, I said. You know, having no one understand me. He looked up. You think no one understands you? People think they do, I said, but they don't. There's this whole different me in there, and nobody sees it. I touched my chest and kind of sighed. The look on his face was priceless. I wish I'd had a camera. He totally bought the whole thing. He didn't know I was basically acting out a scene from a made-for-TV movie I'd seen once. Although, in fairness to me, I was putting in some of my own stuff. I mean, I didn't totally rip off The Problem with Nicole. Who's inside you, Jeff? Cat Poop asked. I waited a while before I answered him. I wanted him to think I was revealing some big secret that only he knew. Then I leaned forward. A ballerina, I whispered. I'm sorry, Cat Poop said. A what? A ballerina, I said, but a little bit louder. There's a ballerina inside of me. He sat back in his chair and looked at me. I started talking really fast. Yeah, see, when I was 5 or 6, my parents took me to see the Nutcracker. It was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I closed my eyes, like I was remembering being at the ballet. I even smiled a little. The woman playing the Sugar Plum Fairy was wearing this pretty costume, I said. I couldn't stop watching her. I wanted to be her. I opened my eyes and looked at Cat Poop. Later, I told my parents that I wanted to be the Sugar Plum Fairy. They just laughed, but it's true. I want to be her. I leaned forward again. She's trapped inside me, I said really softly, like maybe she might be listening and would be mad that I was talking about her. She wants to come out. Good old Cat Poop tapping his pencil against the pad. You're telling me that you hurt yourself because you want to be a ballerina, he said. Is that right? Yes, I said. It's all her fault. She made me do it. I'm possessed by the Sugar Plum Fairy. Just to prove it, I started humming this weird song that was a little like the music they play when the Sugar Plum Fairy dances. I mean, I have seen the Nutcracker. Hasn't everybody? Let's show of hands before I continue. Who here has seen any version of the Nutcracker? Whether it be ballet, Broadway, movie, TV, anything. How many people have seen the Nutcracker in some way, shape, or form? And yes, I will say I have seen it before. 2001's the Barbie version of the Nutcracker. I've seen that movie. My sister had it my sister got it for Christmas God knows how many years ago. But it was definitely when we were kids. And we would watch that every so often. They used to air that movie on CBS for a time because it takes place, that version of the Nutcracker takes place during the Christmas season. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's probably every version, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah. Cat Poop didn't say anything for a long time. When he did say something, he sounded like he was trying really hard not to be angry. Do you think I'm stupid, Jeff? I shook my head. No, I said. You can't be stupid. You went to school in Canada. I bet they have a way better education system than we do. Why, do you feel stupid? There are people here who want very much to feel better about themselves, he said, not answering the question. It's my job to help them do that. It's not my job to sit and listen to you make up a ridiculous story because you don't want to admit that you have a problem. I pretended to be shocked. What do you mean? I said. I just told you, the Sugar Plum Fairy has taken over my body. She tried to kill me. You have to do something like an exorcism or fairycism. You're wasting my time, said Cat Poop. We're done for today. What if she tries to make me hurt myself again? I asked, all concerned. But what if she makes me hurt someone else? I might start pirouetting all over the lounge uncontrollably, and I don't know what would happen if I did that. It could be a Sugar Plum massacre. Are you finished? Cat Poop asked. That depends, I told him, talking like my normal self again. Are you ready to let me go home now? You're here for the full 45 days, said Cat Poop. You can waste every single one of them if you want to, but you're going to spend them here. That made me angry. I thought you said I was wasting your time, I snapped. You are, he said. You're also wasting yours, as well as that of someone else who would really like to be helped, who can't be here because you are. I want you to think about that. I'll see you tomorrow. He looked down and I knew that was my signal to leave, so I did. And I was happy to get out of there. I couldn't believe he was lecturing me about wasting time when he's the one keeping me in this place. All he has to do is say I'm normal and I'll be out of here. If a real whack job wants my place so badly, I'm perfectly happy to give it up. I'm tired of people thinking they're doing me favors. Day 7. This morning I went into the lounge and found Sadie writing a letter. When I asked who she was writing to, she said her best friend. Don't you have a best friend? She asked me. You know, someone you tell everything to? Not really, I told her. I'm not big into friends. Sadie looked at me funny and then noticed the clock. I'm gonna go see Katsrupus, she said, folding up her letter. See you later? Sure, I told her. I'm just going to do some homework. Apparently being imprisoned on the cuckoo house doesn't get you out of learning about the reproductive cycle of the frog. That was another lie. Not the part about homework. The part about not having a best friend. I do, actually. Her name is Alice. I just didn't feel like talking about her with Sadie. That's right. Her. Allie is a girl. I know it's kind of weird for a guy to have a girl best friend, but I do. I'm just going to say for the record, it is not weird for a guy to have a friend who is also who is a girl. Excuse me. I'm just going to repeat it again because that interrupted me. It is not weird for a guy to have a girl for a friend. Anybody who thinks that's weird, you need to grow up or quit being an asshole. Or grow up, or if you are grown up, don't be an asshole. And don't make any assumptions because a guy friend and a girlfriend are hanging out together. That don't mean diddly squat. Of course, of course, people could say, well, what if you're in a relationship with a girl and you're wanting to hang out with a girlfriend? Then I guess you can let her know who you're hanging out with, so that way she doesn't think you're cheating on her or anything like that. But even then, I don't know what I would do in that situation personally because I've never been in that situation myself. But yeah, I could probably ask anybody who is in a relationship. You know what? I'm just going to say this much. I will say for the record, anybody that is in a relationship who instantly thinks that their significant other who is hanging out with a friend who happens to be a girl is somehow considered cheating when they're not actually cheating on this person, y'all need to quit making that assumption. Alright? Same goes for a guy thinking that a girl being with another guy is automatically cheating. Because as long as they're being friendly and not being all lovey-dovey and whatever, and that would be cheating if they were being all lovey-dovey, like a boyfriend-girlfriend kind of thing, then I would consider that as cheating. But if they're being more on friendly terms, I don't really see that as being cheating. And if people are going to be that possessive, they might want to consider what they're doing with that situation. I'm just saying. The first time I saw Allie was when Mrs. Pennyfall, the principal's secretary, walked her into our 7th grade social studies class. Allie stared around the room like she wished she could set it on fire. The only free desk was next to mine, so she had to take it. The whole class, that whole class, she sat there with her head down, drawing on the cover of her notebook. I kept trying to see what she was drawing, but I didn't want her to think I was staring at her. Eventually, she moved the notebook over a little, and I saw what she was doing. The entire cover was covered in perfect little bats. They looked like they were swarming out of the center of the notebook, spiraling around in a big cloud. I couldn't stop looking at them, and Alice noticed. She covered the notebook with her social studies textbook. After class, I followed her into the hall and told her how cool I thought her bats were. She looked at me and said, "I really don't need any friends, okay? I have enough problems." "Whatever," I told her. "But you do need someone to show you around. Otherwise, you might make the mistake of talking to the wrong people, and then your entire social life will be a disaster." She looked at me for a moment and then laughed. That's how it started. We had lunch together the next day. We had lunch together, and the next day she sat by me in social studies again. I found out she liked some of the things I liked, sci-fi movies and roller coasters and some other stuff, and I invited her over to watch Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which is the greatest movie ever made, and way better than Star Wars, no matter what the geeks say. She said okay, and after that we were best friends. So I'm just gonna, before we continue, I'm just gonna say for the record, I have not seen Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and I'm pretty sure any Star Wars fan will probably go off on that comment by this narrator. They will go off on this narrator just because how dare they say that, you know? Because one thing I know about a fan base, when you mess with their movies, or you try to talk smack about their movies or whatever, they will not be happy. They will rip your bum a new one. Every single time. The toxic fanboys in that community definitely will. Some other people probably be like, well, if you like 30 Close Encounters of the Third Kind, or or if you think it's better than Star Wars, I don't really care. It's your opinion. I don't really give a shit. Whatever. And then you got the other people like, how dare you say that? How dare you? Star Wars is always is always going to be the better sci-fi movie series of all time. Don't you dare be dissing Star Wars like that, man. What the hell is wrong with you? Going off on that kind of tangent. Yeah. People who do that are just a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Anyway, Allie's story is that her mom and dad split up, and her mom moved her to our town because she said it was far away from Allie's dad, and she could go without making it too hard for Allie to see him if she wanted to. Only Allie didn't want to see him because she was really angry at him for cheating on her mother. That's why they divorced. Allie's mom found out her husband was sleeping with her best friend, which didn't go over very well with her. Well, obviously. Anyways, Allie only sees her dad when she has to, like every other year at Thanksgiving, and sometimes in the summer, when he decides to pretend they have a relationship, and he makes her go on vacation with him and his new wife, who Allie totally hates because she's always trying to get Allie to like her. Her name is Katie, with no E, and she says things like, "Think of me as your big sister," which Allie says makes her want to puke. Like I said, some people think it's weird that my best friend is a girl. Sometimes I think it's weird too. Mostly people assume that we're boyfriend and girlfriend, which I guess we could be, but that just seems too teen movie, if you know what I mean. A boy and girl are best friends, neither of them dates anyone else, then one night they look at each other and bang! They realize they've been in love with each other the whole time. Everyone's happy and they go to the big dance together. Allie and I did go to a dance together once, the spring social in 8th grade, just so we could see what was so thrilling to everyone else. Our mothers made a big deal about it, making us dress up and taking our pictures and all that crap. My mother still has one of the pictures framed and hanging on the wall in our living room. Every time Allie comes over, she looks at it and says, My... Allie comes over, she looks at it and she says, My hair looks like it exploded. Can't you take that down? But I think secretly she really likes it, like that it's there. The best thing about Allie is that I can tell her about pretty much anything. I wish I could talk to her about how I'm feeling right now, about how I hate being in this place with with these other people and their weird problems. I know she'd get a laugh out of it all. I guess I could write it all in a letter, like Sadie, but it's not really the same. I'll wait to tell her everything in person. I was still thinking about Allie when Sadie came back. I was surprised that a whole hour had gone by already. How'd it go? I asked her. She said, You know, we're not supposed to talk about our sessions with anyone. Seriously, it might set me back. Do you want to be responsible for that? I'll risk it. I'll risk it, I told her. She slapped my arm. Thanks for taking my mental health so seriously, she said. Actually, we talked about my dad. What about him? Sadie sighed. Oh, about how I didn't think he really loves me and how maybe I was trying to get his attention. Were you? Sadie looked at her nails, which were chewed down to almost nothing. Seeing as how he was halfway around the world at the time giving a lecture on medieval architecture, I think I might have planned it a little better if I was, she said. Only he found out I wasn't dead, once he found out I wasn't dead, he waited another week to come home, because there was a castle in Spain he wanted to see first. I wasn't sure I believed her. I mean, a dad who lectures on medieval architecture? It sounds like something I'd make up. But I didn't know if Sadie is a liar or not. It's hard to tell with crazy people. Do you really think he doesn't love you? I asked her. She shrugged. How do you really know if anyone loves you? When I didn't answer, she looked at me. Really, how do you know? I thought about it for a minute. I guess you just assume they do until they tell you they don't, I said. Sadie shook her head. You need a better system than that. Maybe you ask, I suggested. If you have to ask, the answer is probably no. Do you think your parents love you? I nodded. Yeah, I answered, I do. They may be a little whacked, but they love me. Do you tell them they do? Sometimes, I said. My mom more than my dad, but I think that's usually how it goes. Sadie looked at me for a long time. You're lucky. I've been thinking about that ever since. Am I lucky? Wait, I didn't finish the rest of that. Sorry, hold on. Sadie looked at me for a long time. You're lucky, she said finally. I've been thinking about that ever since. Am I lucky? Am I lucky that I didn't die? Am I lucky that, compared to the other kids here, my life doesn't seem so bad? Maybe I am, but I have to say, I don't feel lucky. For one thing, I'm stuck in this pit. And just because your life isn't as awful as someone else's, that doesn't mean it doesn't suck. You can't compare how you feel to the way other people feel. It just doesn't work. What might look like the perfect life, or even an okay life, to you might not be so okay for the person living it. Ah, this place is starting to rub off on me. I sound like cat poop. I wonder what he would think if I told him about Allie. He'd probably ask me if I'm in love with her. And knowing some adults, they probably would ask that question. Now we're at the penultimate chapter for part 1. Day 8. This is my 1 week anniversary at Club Meds. Instead of a party, my big surprise was that my parents came to see me. Or they came because someone told them to, at least. Anyway, when I walked into Cat Poop's office for what I thought was going to be my usual brain-picking session, there they were. At first I thought I was seeing things and that two people who just happened to look like my parents were there for their own session and I was interrupting. But it was them. They were sitting on the couch. When she saw me, my mother stood up and stared and started to come toward me, but then stopped. I think maybe Cat Poop had told her not to make any sudden movements because they might scare me like I'm a wild animal or something, because she kept looking at him and then at me. Finally, she just said, "Hello, Jeff," and sat down again next to my father. I sat in the big chair across from the couch and didn't say anything. I mean, really, what do you say to your parents when the last time they saw you, you were practically dead and they had to call the paramedics? It's not exactly your typical "how was school today" kind of thing, and it's not like we've ever been into the whole sharing thing anyway. We're not huggers. Jeff, is there anything you would like to say to your parents? Cat Poop said when we'd all been quiet for what seemed like 100 years. Is there anything I'd like to say to them? I thought. Yeah, there was. Why didn't you just let me die, for starters? Why didn't you have to come home early from your stupid party? Why did you have to put me in this place with a bunch of whack jobs? But what I actually said was, what did you tell everyone? My mother rubbed her hands together. We told Amanda that you were in the hospital, she said. We didn't tell her why. She's 13, not 4, I said. She must have asked. I know my sister. She's got to know everything about everyone. She can tell you which girl at school just got her period for the first time, and who's asking who to the dance. There was no way she hadn't asked them what was going on. My mom looked at my dad, who looked at the floor. We told your sister you were having some problems, he said. I laughed. I don't know why it was funny to me that they hadn't told Amanda the truth, but it was. And I knew they were lying about what they did tell her. They must have told her something else. I wondered what she thought was wrong with me. Cancer? A brain tumor? I couldn't wait to find out. Hey, Malia, how you doing tonight? What about everybody else? I asked my parents. What did you tell my school? We told them you were going to be out for a while, my dad said. That's all. Haven't any of my friends called to find out what's up? Amanda has been letting them know that you're sick, said my mother. Sick, I repeated. So that's how they thought of me, as being sick. Poor little Jeff, sick and in the hospital while the doctors try to figure out what's wrong with him. The idea of everyone feeling sorry for me made me angry. What about Ellie? I asked, surprising myself. She hasn't called, my mother said. I didn't say anything. Is there anything the two of you would like to say to Jeff? Cat Poop asked my parents. We love you, my mother said. I nodded. Like I said before, Hallmark moments aren't my style. And we want you to get better, added my father, so you can come home. I won't bore you with the rest. There really isn't much more anyway. Basically, I sat there for 45 minutes not saying anything unless the doctor made us. Then there was this awkward goodbye part where my mother broke the no hugging rule and my father patted me on the back. Then they left. Cat Poop had me stay, and when he came back from the showing my parents out, he asked me how I felt things had gone. You could have warned me, I said. Why? He asked. Did you feel threatened by seeing them? No, I told him. I just wasn't expecting it is all. Were you embarrassed? It's not like the last time I saw them I was waiting in the It's not like the last time I saw them I was winning the National Spelling Bee or making the game-winning touchdown or anything, I said. Who's Allie? He asked. What? I said, pretending not to hear him, and took myself for saying her name. Of course he was going to jump on that. Allie, he repeated. You asked your parents if Allie had called and asked about you. Oh, right. Allie. She's a friend from school. Tell me about her. I shrugged. There's not much to tell, I said, hoping it sounded casual about it. She's just a girl I've been friends with for a while. But it's important for you to know that she cares what's happened to you. He said it like it was a fact, not a question. I didn't want to answer him, but he was waiting for me to say something. She and I were kind of going out, I said finally. God, you're nosy. You're worse than my sister. Cat Poop wrote something on his pad but didn't say anything. I couldn't tell whether he believed me or not. I wondered how much time was left in our session and prayed it wasn't much. As if he could read my mind, he put his pen down. That's all for today, he said. We'll talk more tomorrow. Oh, and your parents will be coming once a week from now on, so don't say I didn't warn you. I got out of there as fast as I could, and I've been feeling weird the rest of the day. I didn't know why exactly. Maybe because at first I thought getting out of this place would be a piece of cake, but I think I might have been wrong. Doing well. I know you probably left already, but in case you're watching the VOD or you're still here, that's good to hear. Good to know you're doing well today. And now the final chapter for part 1. Day 9. Somebody let me get my take a drink. I'm just turning that on so that way I can see what time it is when we're done here. Anyway, day 9. Day 9 feels more like year 100. The worst thing is, it's starting to rub off on me. The crazy, I mean. Especially Sadie. I keep thinking about how she tried to kill herself. That sounds so weird. Kill yourself. It makes it sound like you try to murder someone, only that someone is you. But, okay then. But killing someone is wrong, and I don't think suicide is. It's my life, right? I should be able to end it if I want to. I don't think it's a sin. Everyone seems obsessed with it, though. I mean, think about it. We keep people alive on death row just so we can kill them later. We put prisoners on suicide watch so they can't do themselves in before we get the chance to put them on trial. That doesn't make any sense. Why is it okay to put someone to death, but it's not okay for those people to do it themselves? I'll tell you what I think. I think it pisses people off when you kill yourself because it takes away their chance to control your life, even a little bit. They don't like it when you end things the way you want to, and don't wait for the way it's supposed to happen. What if suicide is the way it's supposed to happen? Do they ever think of that? I know I'm ranting. It's just that I'm tired of being cooped up in here and having people tell me to talk about my feelings. Like today in group, Cat Poop made us split into pairs and do this stupid exercise where for 5 minutes one of us had to watch the other one act out what we were feeling. We weren't allowed to say anything. We could only use our bodies and our facial expressions. For 5 minutes. Then we had to switch and give the other person the chance to let it all out. Unfortunately, I had a partner with Juliet. She tried to hook up with Bone, like she always does, but Cat Poop asked Bone to pair up with Alice. I'd like to have paired up with Sadie, but she got added to the Bone Alice Club because there's an odd number of us. The operative word being odd. Anyway, Juliet seemed as thrilled about the whole thing as I was, looking at me the way she would as if the last sandwich on the plate was the olive loaf and marshmallow and she had no choice but to take it or starve to death. Why don't you go first? I suggested, and she was totally happy to do it. Big shock. The girl lives to have people pay attention to her. Seriously, I've never met anyone so obsessed with herself. I sat in a chair and watched while she stood there for a while. I guess thinking about how she was feeling or getting in the mood or whatever. Then she held her hands up and she was holding on to the bars of a cage. She was holding her hands up like she was holding up onto the bars of a cage. She had this sad look on her face, staring at me, but not looking at me, if you know what I mean. And she just stood like that for a couple of minutes. It reminded me of one time when my parents took me to the zoo when I was maybe 4 or 5. I wanted to see the bears, so we went over there and stood with a bunch of other people looking at them. There were brown bears. I remember that. Some kind of grizzlies. Everyone was pointing and talking, and the bears were walking around playing with these big plastic balls or sitting in the pool and doing what bears do. All except one. He was sitting in the grass, just looking at the crowd of people. Only he wasn't really looking at us. He was looking past us, as if he was trying to see something way off in the distance. I remember how sad he looked, and I remember starting to cry. My parents thought I was afraid and took me away, but that wasn't it. I was sad. I was sad for the poor bear having to sit in that pen while a bunch of stupid people looked at him and he had to pretend he was someplace else. That's how Juliet looked, and she could see where she wanted to be, but couldn't get there because she was trapped inside something. After a while, she put one hand out through the invisible bars, and she was trying to give something to someone. She held it in her palm like a present. I wanted to reach out and take it, but I remembered that we were just supposed to watch, so I didn't. Instead, I watched her eyes. They were fixed on something behind me. I turned my head to see what it was and saw Bone standing with his back to us. He was watching Alice and didn't see Julia reaching for him. I totally don't feel sorry for her now. Bone? How pathetic is that? Being so in love with someone who isn't even interested in you. Julia told us that she's here because she has an eating disorder. I don't know about that. I mean, she's not exactly skinny. I asked Sadie if she ever heard Juliet yakking up dinner in the bathroom, and she said she hasn't. So we think maybe Juliet's got a bunch of other problems she just hasn't told anyone about. Yet. I'm sure she will. But really, I don't care. If it turns out being in love with Bone is her big problem, I'm going to be really pissed off. What a waste of time. A minute after I caught Juliet staring at Bone, Cat Poop called out for us to switch, and Juliet sat down without saying anything. I got up and just stood there, not knowing what to do. I felt incredibly stupid. I know Juliet was waiting for me to do something, but nothing was coming to me. I kept seeing her face, then the bear's face, and then the two faces together, like Juliet was wearing a bear mask, or the bear was wearing a Juliet mask. Then I realized I couldn't think of anything to do, because I didn't know what I was feeling. All week. I've just been not thinking much about it. Even when I'm talking about it, I'm not really thinking about it. I'm just saying stuff because someone wants me to. I feel like one of the characters in the movie Sadie and I watched the other night, where I'm playing this part but not the words that come out of me belong to someone else because the sound is turned off and what I'm saying can't be heard. That's when I got mad. Mad at my parents for fighting me. Mad at myself for not doing it right. Mad at Cat Poo for making me do stupid exercises and standing in front of Juliet looking like an idiot. So I was just standing there with Juliet watching, and inside of me, all this stuff was whirling around and around like a tornado. But on the outside, I was frozen. I couldn't move. So I stood there for the 5 minutes and Cat Poo told us to stop. Then it got worse. We had to get together with our partner and talk about what we saw when we looked at each other. I told Juliet that I saw someone who felt trapped, which was a no-brainer. She was all excited, and I knew it wasn't because I understood what she was saying, but because she thought she was such a great actress. She kept asking, "Did you like how I did this and that?" I told her she was great because I figured if I could help her talking about herself, we might never get to talking about me. I did pretty well too. When Cat Poop announced that we only had 2 minutes left, we hadn't said a word about me. I thought I was going to get out of it. When Juliet looked at me and said really quickly, "You're hiding something." I thought she was accusing me of taking something, so I said, "No, I'm not." "Yes, you are," she said. "There's something inside you that you don't want anyone to see." And then time was up and group was over. Juliet immediately ran over to see what Bone was doing, and I just sat there. Sadie came and sat next to me. How was mime time with Juliet?" she asked me. "Lame," I said, trying not to think about what Juliet had said to me. Sadie snorted. "Want to play cards? Do we have to talk about how we feel?" "Hell no," said Sadie. "In fact, if you say one word about what's going on in there, I'm finding another poker buddy. That's what I need more of. People who just leave me alone." And that's going to be it for part 1. For part 2, I will be reading days 10 through 18. But for tomorrow night, I do have, well, it's probably going to be today by the time you guys, it's probably going to be the 15th when you guys watch this. In the, August 15th, 2024, I will be doing a special live stream of Pokemon Fire Red, which I have right here in my DS because my Game Boy Advance is acting up, but thankfully my DS works very well. But anyway, like I was saying, I'll be playing Pokemon Fire Red as a special tribute to Rachel Lillies, who passed away recently. She was the voice actress for Jessie and Misty, and I feel like I know a bit of a way to pay tribute to this voice actress. She was the original voice actress for Misty and Jessie before the company decided to change most, if not all, of the voice actors and actresses for the characters. And I say most, if not all, because for a time they did replace the someone for a narrator, but then starting with Diamond and Pearl, they brought back the original narrator that would that would sometimes start and end the episode. Like, he always ends the episode, but sometimes starts it as well. Depends. But anyway, yeah. So we're gonna go ahead, and I've got that planned for tomorrow. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys so much for watching the first part of Suicide Notes. Hope you guys enjoyed. Probably. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, this is Forrest Walpole, signing off.